Florida pulled in more new residents than almost any state in America over the past few years, and builders answered with a wall of new houses and new condos that buyers are no longer rushing to take. But here is what they are not telling you. The market did not run out of homes. It ran out of buyers who can carry them. There is a standoff happening across this state right now in 2026. On one side are sellers still anchored to the price their neighbor got 2 years ago. On the other side are buyers who simply cannot make the monthly number work once insurance, taxes, and association fees are added on top. And stuck in the middle is a growing pile of homes that just sit there month after month with the price quietly getting cut. When that standoff finally breaks, it does not break everywhere at once. It breaks first in the towns that built the most, leaned on the most speculation, and priced the most regular buyers out. So here are 10 Florida towns where that break is starting first. Let me be clear before we start. This is not the whole state falling, and it is not a prediction invented for a thumbnail. These are the towns where the numbers already turned. If you have been waiting on the sidelines for prices to come back to earth, a few of these are the reset you have been asking for. If you already own in one of them, this is the part nobody warned you about. Number 1 is the town the entire country is already watching. Stay to the end. Number 10 is Lehigh Acres, and Lehigh Acres is where the standoff started quietly, long before the headlines noticed. This is a sprawling grid of affordable homes east of Fort Myers, a place built almost entirely on one idea, that families priced out of the coast would always drive inland to buy new and buy cheap. For a while that worked. Builders poured in, lots filled up, and prices climbed far faster than local paychecks ever did. That is the mechanism that turns on it now. The buyers here were the most stretched to begin with, the ones who needed low rates and low insurance to make it work, and both of those went the wrong way at the same time. When the monthly payment jumped, the marginal buyer simply vanished. Now, inventory in this corner of Lee County has piled up to levels not seen in years, and sellers who bought near the top are watching listings sit for months while the asking price gets marked down again and again. The human cost is the family that bought new construction at the peak and now owes more than the house down the street is listing for. And here is the part that makes it worse. A large share of these homes were never bought by families at all. They were bought by investors betting on rent and appreciation, and when the appreciation stopped, those investors started listing all at once, stacking even more supply onto a town that already had too much. Lehigh Acres did not get unlucky. It got built for a buyer who can no longer afford to show up. If I were watching for where the standoff breaks first, I would start exactly here. Number 9, Palm Bay on the Space Coast. And Palm Bay is what happens when builders read a boom as if it would last forever. The area rode a genuine wave: aerospace jobs, remote workers, and Florida newcomers all looking for something cheaper than the southern coasts. Builders responded with subdivision after subdivision, all aimed at the same value buyer. Here's the mechanism. When the easy money slowed and insurance premiums on Florida homes repriced statewide, the value buyer this town was built for got squeezed out of the math. New homes kept finishing while the line of buyers kept shrinking, and that gap does not close gently. It closes with price cuts and builder incentives, with developers throwing in rate buy-downs and covered closing costs just to move standing inventory. The human cost shows up for the family that paid full price last year and now competes against a builder next door who is effectively discounting the same floor plan. When a builder starts cutting to clear unsold homes, every existing owner in that zip code feels it. Palm Bay, built for a crowd that thinned out in the unsold inventory, is now setting the price for everyone. For a buyer who has been priced out and waiting, that is not bad news at all. It is the first real opening in years. For the owner who paid the peak, it is the bill coming due. Both of those people live on the same street now. If I were tracking the break, Palm Bay is early on the list. Number 8 is Port St. Lucie, one of the fastest building towns in the entire state, and that speed is exactly the problem. For years, this was the relief valve for buyers priced out of Palm Beach County, close enough to the coast, cheap enough to dream, and growing so fast it seemed unstoppable. The mechanism is overbuilding into a payment shock. Town after town of new construction got sold to buyers who qualified only because the monthly number barely worked, and when insurance and taxes climbed on top of higher rates, that barely working number stopped working at all. Now resale homes sit on the market competing against a builder who can simply lower the rate to close a sale, and individual sellers cannot match that. The human cost is the owner who bought to flip or to climb and is now stuck holding, watching the days on market stretch from weeks into seasons. Port St. Lucie was sold as the smart, affordable alternative, but affordable only holds if the carrying cost stays low, and it did not. A town built on the promise of cheap monthly payments is fragile the moment the monthly payment is no longer cheap. And the speed that built it works in reverse, because the same machine that can finish 1,000 homes in a boom keeps finishing them right into the slowdown, long after the buyers have gone quiet. If I were looking for where supply has run ahead of real demand, this is it. Number 7 is Deltona in the middle of the state, and Deltona is carrying one of the widest gaps in Florida between what homes cost and what local jobs actually pay. This is a commuter town built for people working toward Orlando and Daytona who needed a cheaper place to land. The mechanism here is income that never caught up to price. Home values were pulled up by the broader Central Florida boom, but local wages did not follow. So the typical Deltona household is spending a punishing share of its income just to keep the lights on and the roof insured. That is the most fragile setup in any downturn, because there is no cushion. One repair, one insurance hike, one missed paycheck, and the math breaks. Foreclosure and distressed listing activity tends to surface earliest in exactly these income-stretched commuter towns, and when distressed homes start setting the comparable price, the whole neighborhood resets down with them. The human cost is the family that did everything right, bought modestly, and still finds the carrying cost climbing faster than the paycheck. This is the gap that frustrates so many people watching from the sidelines. The simple fact that wages never kept pace with what a basic home costs to own, and in towns like this one, that gap finally forces the price to give. Deltona is not flashy, and it is not coastal, which is exactly why most people watching the market are not looking at it. If I were, I would be. Number 6 is the Kissimmee and Davenport corridor near the theme parks, and this one is different because it was never really built for families at all. It was built for investors. Endless short-term rental communities went up here on a single bet that a constant river of tourists would keep the nightly bookings full and the mortgages paid. The mechanism is what happens when that bet softens. When travel spending tightens and the market gets flooded with near-identical rental homes all chasing the same guests, nightly rates fall, occupancy drops, and suddenly the investor who counted on the property paying for itself is covering the shortfall out of pocket every single month. Investors do not hold at a loss the way a family holds a home. They sell, and they often sell fast and all at once. The human cost lands on the whole corridor when investor owners rush for the exit together and dump inventory into a market that does not have enough real local buyers to absorb it. This is the part that makes regular buyers angry, and fairly so, because for years, homes here were treated as stock certificates instead of places to live, bought in bulk by funds and out-of-state speculators who never set foot in them. When that money leaves, it leaves all at once. A town built on tourists has no floor under it when the tourists slow down. And by the way, if you have followed me this far down the list, you are already paying closer attention than most people who just read the headline and scroll on, so if this is useful, the subscribe button is right there. Number 5 is Northport in Southwest Florida, and Northport is one of the clear examples in the state of building straight into a buyer that disappeared. This was one of the hot growth markets in the country during the boom, a builder magnet where whole new sections of town rose almost overnight for newcomers chasing space and value. The mechanism is brutal in its simplicity. The boom pulled construction far ahead of sustainable demand, and then insurance costs across Southwest Florida went vertical after the recent storm seasons repriced the entire region. So the carrying cost jumped at the exact moment the buyer pool thinned, and Northport now sits with one of the heavier inventory overhangs on the Gulf Coast. Sellers are cutting, builders are still finishing homes, and the two are competing for a shrinking line of buyers. The human cost is the recent arrival who stretched everything to buy new at the peak and now watches identical homes nearby list for noticeably less. Northport is the textbook case of supply outrunning demand, and that is precisely the recipe for a town that gives way early. The builders here are not villains and the owners are not foolish. They simply all bet on a line that kept going up and the line stopped. The trouble is that a town like this has almost nothing else holding the price up. No deep job base, no scarcity, just the momentum of the boom itself. And momentum is the easiest thing in the world to lose. If I were ranking fragility, Northport sits high. Now stop for a second, because this next stretch is the part that matters most. If you have followed the standoff this far, you are already paying closer attention than most people who skim the doom headlines about Florida and move on. Whether you already own a home in this state or you are planning the move from somewhere colder, the final four towns are where the inventory overhang is deepest, where the carrying cost has climbed the hardest, and where the most paper wealth is sitting on the thinnest support. This is the part you came for. Number 4 is Punta Gorda, a beautiful retiree and boater town on Charlotte Harbor. And Punta Gorda shows how fast a coastal dream can turn into a coastal cost problem. For years, this was the quieter, classier alternative to the bigger Gulf Coast cities, drawing retirees who paid cash and wanted calm water and warm winters. The mechanism here is insurance meeting age. This stretch of coast took the brunt of recent storm seasons, and the cost to insure a home anywhere near that water has climbed to numbers that make even cash buyers hesitate. When insurance becomes the largest line in the yearly budget, the pool of buyers willing to take it on shrinks, and listings start to sit. Add a wave of older owners deciding the upkeep and the premiums are no longer worth it, all listing around the same time, and you get supply rising into falling demand. The human cost is the retiree on a fixed income who planned for the mortgage but never planned for an insurance bill that doubled. Punta Gorda is not giving way because people stopped loving it. It is softening because the cost of keeping a home on that water has outrun what the next buyer will pay. If I were watching the coast, I would watch here. Here is something worth having if you own property anywhere in Florida or you are weighing a move here. Every town worth buying into and every town worth avoiding in this state is now in one place. 40 Florida towns, 20 rated to buy and 20 rated to avoid, in a single guide called the Florida Buy and Avoid List for 2026. You can get it through the link in the description below. But stay right here, because the number 1 town on this list is the one the entire country is already watching. It has posted some of the steepest price cuts anywhere in America, and the reason it falls first is the part almost nobody explains correctly. Number 3 is Tampa, and Tampa matters because it is big, and when a market this size starts to wobble, it does not wobble quietly. For a decade, Tampa was a darling, a fast-growing metro pulling in jobs, transplants, and money from every direction, with prices to match. The mechanism turning on it now is a stack of 3 pressures at once. Insurance across the Bay Area repriced hard after recent flooding hit neighborhoods that had never taken water before. Condo owners face the new state inspection and reserve rules that are forcing six-figure repair bills onto aging buildings. And the volume of new apartments and condos built downtown is now competing for the same renters and buyers. The human cost is the owner who bought near the peak and now faces a higher insurance renewal, a possible special assessment, and a neighbor listing for less, all in the same year. A metro the size of Tampa cannot hide its softness. When a market this large starts cutting prices, the whole region takes its cue from it. If I were measuring where the break would be felt widest, Tampa is the one. Number 2 is the Sarasota and Bradenton area, and this stretch of the Gulf Coast is carrying two problems at the same time: a condo overhang and an insurance wall. The boom here built a forest of new condos and filled the existing towers with owners who never imagined what was coming. The mechanism is the new structural laws meeting old buildings. Aging coastal condos now face mandatory inspections and fully funded reserves, and the repair bills are landing as special assessments that can run into the tens of thousands per unit and beyond. Owners hit with those bills are listing to escape them all at once into a market already swollen with brand new units. At the same time, barrier island insurance has climbed to levels that thin the buyer pool to almost nothing. When forced sellers and fresh inventory pile up in the same market, price has only one direction to go. If I were looking for where the condo standoff breaks hardest, it is right here. And that brings us to number 1. I told you it was the town the entire country is already watching, and I meant it. Because everything we have talked about, the overbuilding, the speculation, the insurance, the buyer who vanished, all of it shows up here more clearly than anywhere else in America. Number 1 is Cape Coral. The poster child of the Florida boom is now the poster child of the Florida standoff. Understand what Cape Coral actually is. It is one of the largest pre-platted communities in the country, a giant grid of canal lots designed from the very beginning to be bought and sold on speculation. That design is the mechanism. When the market runs hot, Cape Coral builds and sells faster than almost anywhere. And when it cools, all of that speculative supply turns around and floods the market at the same time. That is exactly what is happening now. Cape Coral has posted some of the steepest price cuts and the deepest inventory pileups of any city in the entire country, and the reasons stack on top of each other. Insurance costs on the water climbed hard after the recent storms. Builders are still finishing homes into a market that already has too many. And the investors who drove the boom are selling into the same crowded exit. The human cost is the regular buyer who paid the peak price for the dream of a canal home and now watches that value get marked down month after month while the insurance bill climbs. Let me be honest with you, this is not the end of Cape Coral, and the water and the weather are not going anywhere. But a town engineered for speculation will always feel the break first and feel it hardest, because speculation is the first thing to run for the door. If any Florida town gives way first, the entire country will see it here. So here is the thread that ties all 10 together. Not one of these towns is a bad place to live. They are the places where the standoff is breaking first, because they built the most, leaned hardest on speculation or stretched buyers, and watched the carrying cost climb past what the next buyer will pay. So tell me where you stand. Drop a comment with the Florida town you are in right now, whether you own there or you are planning the move, and what your last insurance renewal actually did to your budget. Because those renewal numbers tell the real story of this market better than any headline. And tell me which town you think I ranked wrong. I read every one of those. If you are the kind of person who believes the real story of this market is the one the headlines keep getting backwards, hit the subscribe button right now, because next, I am flipping this entire list over and showing you the Florida towns that are holding their value while everyone else panics, the places I would actually put my own money in 2026. And number one on that list is a town most people drive straight past without looking twice. We will see you in the next one.